Good afternoon from the kitchen, folks. It's an experimental day in home brewing today, where I'm going to attempt to make a sparkling wine flavoured from tea and hops. My key ingredients in today's brew are tea bags and Chinook hops for the flavour. I'm also using Lalvin champagne sparkling wine and cider yeast, the EC1118, and Young's yeast nutrient, as well as spring water, which is better than the tap water I have around here, which is a bit chlorine-y. I need to begin by making a good strong pan of tea. So we're going to put 10 tea bags in here. 2, 4, 5 and 10. On top of my tea bags goes the spring water. So now it's time to make that cuppa. So I need this to come to the boil now. I'm going to weigh out 20 grams of the Chinook hops. The hops are in pellet form. I'm just going to shake them onto the lid. There's 20 grams. And I'm going to put them in a separate pan. And on top of the hops, I'm going to add some spring water again. And then, like with the tea, it's gas on. And I need this to come to a boil. You can see that the hop pellets on the right hand side have already dissolved, and I'm going to try and filter them out before they go into the fermentation vessel, but I'm not worried if any get through, because when I clear it, that will get rid of any that are in there. For the tea now, I'm going to give it a mash, and I'm using a potato masher because I want to get all the flavour and all of the tannins out of the tea bags. I'm going to add some cold water now into my demijohn because I don't want to put the boiling water straight in there. I'm now going to pour the tea. Lovely brown colour. Splash. If you can do it tidier than me, then that's probably better. And then I'm just going to press the tea bags to get all the juice out that's possibly there. I've added a filter into my funnel, and what I'm going to do now is to pour the hops through, and I want the liquid from that to go into this pan, but I want the filter to capture the hops. Again, try and do it a bit less messy than me. Filter works. So what I'm left with is some hop water, and I'm now going to add to this 1 kilogram of brewing sugar. So each one of these jugs is just over 300 grams. I know because I've measured it before. I'm just going to add 3 and a little bit jugs. I'm going to put some heat back onto this one. And the brewing sugar is very fine and it will dissolve fairly quickly. So I'm just going to stir this round now until it's dissolved. Okay, that's now dissolved, so I'm going to turn the heat off. And then this is also going into the demijohn. Now I've purposefully overfilled this because I've got to pour some out to take the gravity, but it's too hot to take the gravity at the minute, and it's too hot to add the yeast. So I'm just going to put the airlock in so no contaminants get in, and I'll come back to this in a few hours' time when it's cooled down. It's about 5 hours later, and I'm just going to remove the bung, and I'm going to pour some of this out now into my hydrometer jar. This is so I can take the original gravity. It smells very teaey and very hoppy, as you would expect. I need to take the original gravity at 20 degrees, and this is still too warm, I can tell by feeling it, so I'm going to cool it down with some cold water. I've got the hydrometer jar in a jug of cold water. That will just bring the temperature down. Whilst I'm waiting for that to happen, I'm going to add the yeast and some yeast nutrient now into the must. So I'm using Lalvin champagne sparkling wine and cider yeast. There's about just a nice rounded teaspoon there. I'll pop that in, and then another 1/3 of a teaspoon. On top of that, I'm going to add a nice heaped teaspoon of Young's yeast nutrient. That's now all in there. So I'm just going to give it a little shake around to get it to mix in. I'm going to put the airlock back in, and you can see there's not much room at the top. So if this does form a krausen and the big foamy head on top, it might come through the airlock. If it does, I'll replace the airlock with a blow-off pipe, but we'll see what happens on the interim. I don't know how much of a krausen this brew will make. The temperature is now right for taking the original gravity. So let's get the hydrometer in and see where we begin. And I'm starting off with an original gravity of 1.052, 1052. So that's it for now. I need to wait for the yeast to activate, fermentation to kick in, and then I'll be back once this is finished fermenting and it comes to clearing and bottling. So I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Good morning from the kitchen, folks. It's Hoppy Tea Wine Clearing Day. Here it is. There's my wine that's hoppy, and there's the cat outside called Poppy. But anyway, so it's hops and tea. It's been in there a month, and now it's reached a point where it doesn't want to do anything else fermentation wise, so I'm happy to clear it. So that's what's going to happen. And here is Poppy, just coming to say hello, not even my cat. So it's bung out, siphoning tube in, quick suck. Well, it smells very nice. Not quite sure what it smells of. Very winey. Just gonna have a little nifter, see what I think. Yeah, it's quite fruity actually, a bit plummy. Not expecting that. Dry. Definitely get the hop hit and the tannin hit together. It's got a fruity bouquet. I don't know where that comes from. It's not unpleasant, I'll tell you that, but it's very dry. Probably one of the driest wines I've done. So if you like dry wines, this is a good one. So I'm doing a finings A and finings B process. I'm using clear it wine finings from Young's. I need to put a little bit of this in and then a little bit of B in an hour later. I'll pop a little bit of this in now. And there go the bubbles. So I'm just going to give this a little bit of agitation so those finings are nicely mixed in. I'm hopeful that this one should clear, but you never know. Okay, I'll come back to this in an hour to add finings B. See you then. Okay folks, an hour has passed and there is no visible sediment in the bottom of this, so I'm now, instead of siphoning, I'm just going to pour it back into the original demijohn through a funnel. And then when I get halfway through, I'm going to stop and add finings B. Finings B. In it goes. Same amount as finings A. Little dribble. And on we go. Because I'm pouring it through a funnel, it mixes perfectly well. I don't need to shake it around afterwards. It's really got a strong smell. So I've got the bung back in the demijohn, just giving it a rinse under the tap because it's all sticky. And all that movement and agitation has set the airlock off again, but that's just temporary. So I'm going to leave this now until next week, and then I'm going to come back to it. Hopefully it'll be clear, and if it is, I'll be bottling it. So I'll see you then, folks. Good afternoon from the kitchen, folks. It's Hoppy tea wine bottling day, and here it is. It's been 2 weeks since I added the finings. It's cleared a little bit. The finings certainly dragged some sediment down to the bottom. It is slightly opaque. You can see a little bit through it, but I'm going to bottle this as is. There's obviously some stuff still suspended in there. If I'd added pectolase, that might have made more of a difference. But I'm hopeful that that little bit of cloudiness will contribute to a bit more of a sparkle inside the bottles. In order to help that sparkle, I'm going to add a little bit of priming sugar. This is actually a mixture of normal household sugar and brew sugar. In this, I'm trying different things. And I'm going to add what is the equivalent of a heaped teaspoon into each 750ml bottle. And then a third of that into the small bottle of 330. I've now got my sugar in the bottles, so it's bung out, siphoning tube in. I'm holding the tube in place with this clip. I've got the bottom end just into the sediment. The first bit that comes out will be sedimenty, but that's going to go into the hydrometer flask. So now the fun bit. And in that goes, and then into the bottles. Actually looks quite nice in the tube, colour wise. A bit like tea. And there we go, just enough to fill that last bottle. That's good. So all good. I've got 5 750ml bottles and a 330ml bottle. Right, I'm going to take the final gravity. Nicely sunk. This has finished on a final gravity of 0.992. 0.992. So it's now time to work out the alcohol by volume by calculating this from the original gravity and the final gravity. So the original gravity was 1.052. I deduct from that the final gravity, which was 0.992. That equals a figure of 0.06. And I multiply that by 131.825. And that equals a final alcohol by volume of 7.9095%. I'm just going to say 8% because there's going to be a little bit more fermentation take place in the bottle for carbonation from the yeast and the sugar. So I'm just going to label this at 8%. Right, I need to bung my bottles now. I've got my bungs in hot water to soften them to make the job a little bit more easy. They're plastic bungs, but they can be quite difficult. The hot water, in essence, makes them malleable. Here goes. One, 2, 3, 4. Number 5. That went in nice and easy. Still quite painful. I've now got my 330 and I need to use my bottle capper for this one. So here's my bottle capper. It's somewhere in between Space Invaders and Predator. It's got a nice magnetic bit that holds the cap, and in theory I should just be able to put this over the bottle, push downwards gently and evenly on each side, and everything should be wonderful. That's the theory. The practice doesn't always work the same. Although today it's worked lovely. Yeah, that's okay. I'm just going to give my bottles a rinse now before caging them, just so the sticky residue on the outside is off of them. So the cages, like the bottles, are recycled and they are an essential safety feature. Nobody wants a bottle missile. And it does happen. Okay, 1. So I'm just going to let these dry off while I go and print the labels out. So I've got my labels made up, just need to print these off now. So I've got my bottles and my labels. It's just a case of getting these on, avoiding the seam of the bottle and trying to get them straight. Something like that. And I'll carry on. So there's the bottles all labelled, and now they're ready for conditioning. Well, I'm in my conservatory. It's south facing, it's very warm in here, it's easily warm enough to condition them. So all I'm going to do is pop my bottles in this box. I've already got some beers conditioning in here. So I've got them in the box, all nice and dark, under the table. And I'm going to leave them for 2 weeks and then it'll be the tasting. So I'll catch you then, folks. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. It's Hoppy Tea Sparkling Wine opening night. Quite excited about this one. I don't know what I'm going to get. I'm hoping for a nice appearance, a good smell and a lovely flavour, and it would be really nice if there was a sparkle too. Will I get one? Who knows. Been a bit hit and miss on the sparkle front of late. Okay, am I going to get a pop? I can't call that a pop, can I? That's a bit of a damp squib. No, is that a sparkle? Oh, I think there is a bit of a sparkle there actually. It's got a head like a beer. Interesting. It's cloudier than I thought it was going to be. Smells intense, that's the hops. A really deep, fruity smell it gives it. It's sparkling. And it tastes quite decent. Very, very unusual. I would never ever have guessed it was a tea wine. The hops is the overarching flavour that comes through. It makes it a bit like an IPA in some respects. Yeah, the sparkle's definitely there. It's not fizzy, but the sparkle is there. It's more than a mild effervescence. It's definitely got something to it. In terms of the flavour, it's like a really deep, rich fruit flavour. It's not quite dry. It's somewhere in between a medium and a medium dry. But yeah, it's a nice flavour. It's a nice taste, I must admit. If you'd have given me this, I would have been like really curious as to what it was, and probably shocked when I found out. But it's made me realise that, you know, working with ingredients like tea bags and hops just as an experiment does actually work. For a brewer, it's a good one. Anyway, folks, I'm going to enjoy this. So cheers to you, good health, and I'll catch you on the next brew. Cheers. The film that you've just watched is a Moss Home and Garden production. You can find more by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. I'd just like to say thank you very much for supporting my YouTube channel and for watching my films. It really is very much appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to receive future updates about the home and garden films which I upload. You can find my YouTube channel by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. Please click on the red subscribe button. When you've done that, a little bell will appear. If you press that also, then you'll get future updates about the films which I upload. If you like my films, if you like my style of filming, then you might also like my travel channel, which you will find by going to youtube.com/Stuart Moss or type in www.mosstravel.tv. Again, if you could subscribe to that channel, it would be hugely appreciated. If you'd like to get Moss Home and Garden updates on Facebook, then please open Facebook and do a search for Moss Home and Garden, and you will find the page. If you like the page, then you will get future updates on there. And if you'd like to connect on Instagram for home, garden and travel photography, as well as some stories, then my username is StuMoss, STUMOSS. If you'd like to connect on Twitter, then my username is @StuartMoss. And if you'd like to contact me about film usage or any other issue, please just email me on stewmosshomegarden@gmail.com. Once again, thank you very much for supporting my channel, for watching my films. I do appreciate it. I'd just like you all to have a great day.